Welcome to the Philadelphia Inquirer's video spring training preview. I'm Scott Lauber alongside my colleagues Matt Breen and Bob Brookover, and we are ready for spring training number 2 for Bryce Harper as a member of the Phillies, or should we call it 1.5, because last year at this time they were still chasing Manny Machado, they were still chasing Bryce Harper. It was not until the beginning of March almost that Bryce Harper showed up in Clearwater and became a full-fledged $330 million member of the Phillies. So he'll be there on day 1 this year. And guys, what do you expect? Matt, I'll start with you from Bryce Harper as he begins his first full spring training with the Phillies.
Yeah, so I think you can't disagree that Bryce Harper had an excellent season last year. Second most WAR on the team, 35 home runs, over 100 RBIs. Played almost every single day besides the 3 days he missed when his baby was born.
Played surprisingly good defense compared to what we thought.
Yeah, much better defense when that was like the big talking point at this point last year. But there's still room to grow. And if you look at his second half numbers last year, that puts him on, you take that and stretch it over a 162-game season, puts him on pace for 46 home runs, 126 RBIs, and OPS it's in like the 940s where it was in 880 last year. And that's really what you expect from Bryce Harper, superstar type numbers. And I think that's what you're going to get this year because of the full spring training. At this point last year, he doesn't know where he's playing. He's spent his all offseason wondering if he's going to the Dodgers or if he's playing for the Nationals again. And I think that took a toll on him. Wasn't able to prepare with a clear mind. Then he gets to Philadelphia finally towards the middle of spring training. His wife's pregnant, so he's got this on his mind. He's looking for houses. There was just like a whirlwind of things going on. And then he had to play baseball, and he had to play baseball with the pressure of $330 million in a new city where he had to make everyone love him. And he still had an excellent season. I just think that the second half is when he really came into his own, and I expect to stretch that over the full course of the season.
And the big number with Bryce Harper is he's 27 years old. He's still only 27 years old. He's going into the prime of his career. I was looking this up the other day. At age 27 seasons, Mike Schmidt was just getting into his best years as a player. He didn't have nearly the numbers to that point in his career. He obviously started later, much later than, not much later, but a few years later than Harper. If you look at the comparable players of what they've done to the age 26, there's Mike Trout and there's Bryce Harper and very few others. One of the players who is in that list, which might be a little bit scary to people, is an Andrew Jones, was kind of similar to numbers-wise at that age, and he kind of fell off a cliff from there. I don't see that happening to Bryce Harper. One of the things I find interesting that I'm really going to watch over this next decade is Harper and Trout have always been compared to each other, and Trout's obviously been the best player. But the thing that matters most to them, they both signed those big contracts last year to keep them. The thing that matters most to them, can we win? And for a minute, it seemed like maybe Mike Trout could come here. Harper even, fueled the speculation for 30 seconds.
I think if you went to your newsstand, I think there's a Philadelphia Daily News cover with Mike Trout with it wearing a Phillies hat, and that's the closest you're going to get to seeing it.
Right.
But it's out there. It's there.
But the Angels and Phillies have more in common than red uniforms too. They've both been disappointing big market teams that are trying to get back to the playoffs. I'd argue the Angels did more than the Phillies, and especially they just got Jock Peterson, that they did more, getting Rendon than the Phillies did this offseason. It's going to be fascinating. They're not competitive rivals, but Trout and Harper are forever linked, and their teams, for that reason, are forever linked. It'll be fun to watch to see which of those teams ends the playoff drought.
It will, and I think going forward, that's a fun exercise and something to pay attention to, like which of the two of them makes more postseason appearances for the rest of their careers, because they're going to have, health permitting, fairly lengthy careers now that with their teams that extend well into the decade and beyond. And which one of them is better positioned not only to win the World Series, but to be a presence in October every single year. To get back to Harper, I think you've got a few different Bryce Harpers over the course of his career. Like you've got 2015 MVP Bryce Harper, who from start of the season to finish was the best player in his league, put up huge, crazy numbers. That was the guy who came around the second half of last year. You know, first half Bryce Harper was not as good a player, and you were looking at him and you were saying, well, he might be one of the biggest stars in baseball, but he's not one of the 10 best players in baseball. And last year went very similar to the way 2018 did for him, where his first half wasn't very good. His second half, probably had a better second half last year than he did in the second half of 18, but his second half was much better than his first, and he ended up with numbers that you'd look at and go, well, he had an excellent season. I wonder if that's the guy who he is really going forward, the guy who, you know, winds up every year with 35, somewhere between 35 and 40 home runs, drives in over 100 runs, really strong OPS, but it's those, you know, some of those extremes, even within a year, that prevent him from being, you know, 2015 MVP Bryce Harper for that full season.
That's been the knock on him for the last few years, is that he's just not been consistent enough. So we'll see if that comes with age, and he's at the age, again, 27, where this is supposed to be the prime right now.
Playing at a extremely hitter-friendly ballpark, I think 35 home runs, if that's what it is, that's not good enough. I think it's got to be 45 home runs, especially in this day and age where everybody's hitting home runs. So
let's focus on, for a second, the guys around him too. And he'll have one guy in the lineup, in particular, a left-handed hitter, just like him, who wasn't there last year, and that was Didi Gregorius. Are the Phillies maybe a little more balanced in their lineup this year? Does that help Bryce Harper going forward to say, like, there's another, and he's probably going to bat somewhere in the middle of the order, Didi will, that there's another left-handed hitter that's got to be contended with? You know, Rhys Hoskins didn't help Bryce Harper in the second half of last year by not being a very good hitter. You'd expect that he'll be better. You know, how much will they be better around him with Didi there, with McCutchen back, and will that help Bryce Harper going forward?
yeah, for sure. If you have McCutchen at the top of the lineup, one of the best for first 3 months of last season, he was probably the best or one of the best leadoff hitters in baseball when you measure it by OPS, and they obviously missed him the rest of the year. And then you have, if Rhys Hoskins can play, he had 20 home runs in the first half of last season. If he has 40 home runs, if he's on pace for that, that's a great piece to put in front of or behind Bryce Harper. And then you have JT Realmuto and Didi Gregorius. Remember last year when things were going so well in the first month of the season last year, the thing in the Phillies clubhouse, they'd say, I think Rhys Hoskins used to say it a lot, pick your poison. You know, if you're going to pitch around me, you got to face Harper. If you're going to pitch around Harper, you're going to face Realmuto. If you pitch around Realmuto, you're going to face, you know, whoever. And it's just, they had this potent lineup, and that was the way it was built, but it only really lasted about a month.
When McCutchen went down, it was huge. And,
Yeah.
and, you know, a lot of people talk about the struggles Rhys Hoskins had in the second half. Scott Kingery had a lot of struggles in the second half, too. He came out and was terrific in the first half, but they need him to be all the way through. And, you know, that's what, and maybe that's why Joe Girardi is the most important person, and his coaching staff is the most important, you know, because it's a different coaching staff, too, new pitching coach, new hitting coach, that they're, as you go back to talking about, you know, who got better, that's really as important as anything. How many people can get better on this team? And we've gotten off the Bryce Harper track, so maybe.
Well, and what if they turn around and trade for Bryce Harper's best friend, Chris Bryant? Can you imagine what the lineup would look like then?
That would be a nice lineup.
But that would make them pay the
Luxury tax, which they don't want to do. But
and they'd also have to give up
Spencer
players.
Howard, probably.
Right.
So, and they should not do that. Anyway, we'll have plenty of time to talk about all of that in Clearwater for the next 6 weeks. For Matt Breen and Bob Brookover, I'm Scott Lauber. Check us out at Inquirer.com and in the Philadelphia Inquirer.